Welcome everyone, welcome to the Civil Service Data Challenge semi-final. We're all really excited to have you here today. Over to you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mark and I'm here with my team today to present our data solution to increase the efficiency and accuracy in the DWP benefit known as Personal Independence Payment, or PIP, which has a caseload of 3 million customers. We're going to see one of those right now.
Hi, my name's Kirsten Flett and I'm a PIP recipient. Initially, the first problems really occurred after the birth of my second daughter. Went from being a moderate asthmatic to being a very severe uncontrolled asthmatic. Problems then came when PIP was introduced. I sent the reassessment off late January. It got to about October. And I got a letter through then saying that they wanted to do an assessment in January 24. So by this stage, that would have been a year. I was on the phone for 2.5 hours and it was exhausting. And at the end of it, I thought, I don't know where I stand. They said, you should hear from us within 6 to 8 weeks. At which I burst into tears. I didn't feel like a person, I just felt like a number. Without it, I would be housebound. I wouldn't have a car, I wouldn't have my power chair. But I've got to go through it all again 2.5, 3 years' time.
And she's not alone. There's thousands of customers like this in PIP. And there are thousands more with extra complexities to their cases. I know what it's like firsthand to try and solve these complexities, because I've been a decision maker and I've led the teams that also make decisions. Colleagues must wade through vast amounts of operational instruction that extends to thousands of pages, on top of which there's weekly updates to legislation, policy, and procedure. Correct, helpful answers are hard to come by quickly. That's why we want a tool for PIP colleagues, and eventually every civil servant, to be able to answer every question accurately and timely, giving customers the answers they need when they need them. Now, there's no doubt that our colleagues work really hard. And actually within PIP, there's a giant change transformation program trying to improve the benefit from end to end. But as of right now, there's a large and growing backlog that extends to 100,000 tasks. Half of these are 60 days or older, and there's quite a lot actually that are older than a year. It would take 378 extra colleagues 10 weeks to clear this backlog. The system is overwhelmed, leading to error and delay. The stress for both colleague and customer is building. Sadly, colleagues talk to multiple suicidal customers every single year, and mental health accounts for 1/3 of working days lost. We want to reduce the pressure in the system, help colleagues' mental health, and reduce the number of people thinking about taking their own lives with our policy summarisation tool, known as POSSUM, which will also save time and money and improve the overall reputation of the department. I'm going to hand over to Jamie now to tell you how POSSUM will work.
Hi, I'm Jamie. So as Mark explained, we can ease Kirsten's wait by making it easier and quicker for DWP frontline staff to resolve PIP cases. POSSUM will free up staff time, usually spent sifting through long policy and guidance documents, which are stored in various places. How does POSSUM work? So POSSUM is a policy summarisation RAG chatbot that has thousands of PIP policy documents in its knowledge base. So when POSSUM is asked a question, it checks its knowledge base, and which is refreshed on a weekly basis, and it uses the most useful documents it finds to generate an answer and return that to the DWP colleague. It provides citations for transparency, and it also suggests follow-up questions. Now, if POSSUM can't answer a question, it escalates it to a DWP PIP specialist and also provides a transcript of the conversation so far. By asking by asking staff to rate POSSUM's responses, we can use this feedback in a reinforcement learning for human feedback scheme. And the ratings help POSSUM improve its answers in line with staff expectations. How do we make POSSUM easy to deploy across government? So we will deploy POSSUM in teams. That will make it easier for DWP staff to access. And we'll have pre-built modules that will make it easy to connect Possum's knowledge base to any kind of data source typically found in government. So for example, a vector database through to a on-premise SharePoint. Over to James.
Thanks, Jamie. Let me share what we've learned about our users and what is happening with generative AI across government. Mark and I spent a day at the DWP office in Bootle to meet caseworkers, case managers, and team leads. We sat with them, watching them work, take phone calls, discuss details of cases, and then held a workshop to explore their problems and ideas. A common theme was sometimes spending many minutes or even hours looking for the relevant policy or guidance documentation. Team leads can spend around a third of their time trawling through guidance that a member of their team has been unable to find. Wouldn't this time be better spent progressing individual cases like Kirsten's? We need to make sure we're aligned with any related work happening at DWP, so we're talking with colleagues in their Lighthouse Programme for AI and their Innovation Lab. We've already identified good opportunities for reuse and a credible route from proof of concept to limited production deployment with user testing. There's a lot of interest from civil servants wanting to get their hands on this new technology, but equally, we're seeing growing concern about if and how AI can be used safely and responsibly. So we'll follow the 10 principles laid out in the Generative AI Framework for Government, including topics such as security and ethics. Principle 7, you are open and collaborative, is one we embody through our entry to the data challenge. Open collaborative working is essential for widespread adoption of policy summarisation tools across the civil service and the wider public sector. Over to Wendy to explain how we're going to get there.
Thanks, James. So I'm just going to briefly explain what our next steps in the competition would be and what our vision for Possum will be in the future. We really want to help customers like Kirsten and all those others that are in the backlog, and we also want to support our DWP colleagues, and we believe that Possum is a tool that can do just that. So, as Mark explained, Possum works slightly different to the other chatbot solutions that are being developed in DWP at the moment. So our first step is going to be to actually build a pilot in collaboration with the DWP Digital Transformation team. We're then going to do user testing with the teams that we've set up in Bootle, and from that we should get some good benefit evidence which will lead us to build a strong business case which will see it through to funding and implementation. We know that easy and quick access to guidance and policy is not just a DWP issue, it's a cross-government issue. There are 250,000 customer-facing civil servants. We know that every single one of them at some point is going to need to access guidance and policy in order to answer a customer's question. So our vision for Possum is not about a single solution for a single use case in a single department. It's about a repeatable blueprint of the technical expertise in order to quickly customise Possum and set it up for that department's need, but also to provide the best practice around how to conduct the user testing, how to actually get the best out of that feedback, and how to positively land generative AI in a department with some really strong communications. We believe that Possum is going to help the government on its incremental steps towards its AI journey. We believe that Possum is going to allow every government department to have equal access to a tool so they can set up their own bespoke chatbot. If we think back to the 250,000 civil servants, if Possum only saved 2 minutes every time it was used, that's a huge saving. But more importantly, that's a time saving for our customers and a much better experience all round. Thank you very much for listening, and we'd be happy to take your questions.
Really fabulous presentation. I love the name, by the way, and the logo. Great, love that. Who wants to kick us off? Simon?
So team, great to hear the passion you've got for Possum. So I'm Simon Bourne, the Chief Data Officer at the Home Office, and interestingly, we're doing something very analogous, which is summarising asylum policy documentation for asylum caseworkers, and also transcribing asylum interviews and summarising asylum interviews for them. I'd like to probe on the benefits from this. You talked about the 100k task backlog. Have you been able to do any modelling as to what level of operational benefit there'd be from the improvements that Possum would bring?
We have done some very basic ones, but that's really an area we're going to explore. Mark, could you perhaps give some of the figures, if you can remember the figures?
If I can remember them. Well, first of all, we've seen the Home Office stuff, and it's really cool. I love the way what they're doing there. So we were discussing just big general numbers, I think. So, in terms of savings, the big complex things don't come up to every person every week, but they do come up like in the office every week. Most things are, straight away, once and done, we can get them done. It's when those difficult things come in, which do take a long time. And then, so you could be saving hours a week on one thing, which then means you get back, that time to make your decisions. And then if you're making the decisions and dealing with those complex things quickly, that backlog isn't getting pushed out. You're doing it straight away.
Yeah, I get that. Now, how many people are doing this particular case working?
I think it's 3,500.
Yeah, so that's your opportunity workforce, so as to speak. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that opening. I thought that was really compelling. Well done.
Done it hundreds of times, and that didn't happen before.
So maybe it's a benefit that you may have already thought about, but I was just wondering that with the introduction of new policies that your caseworkers then have to understand, learn, and then find, is there a service that you could build once this is developed to test ideas for policies prior to their implementation? So, for example, someone comes up with an amazing idea. Imagine, if you will, a minister who knows the system inside out and has come up with an idea that they want to pass to you to implement. One thing that I just wondered if you considered is that the implementation of that policy and testing it with data to see the actual ramifications on complexity, and so there's some trending analysis. I wondered if you'd done anything in that space to think about how that might work. And the second question might be a bit simpler. Once you've proved and tested this, who's the person who approves that you can trust the output of the algorithm? So obviously the caseworker might say, yep, I'm agreed, this has saved me time, but who assesses whether or not that's the right decision? How are you going to test that?
So in terms of the trusting the answers, so we ground the chatbot using a knowledge base. It retrieves the knowledge based on the query, and we provide citations so that the user can then cross-check against the knowledge the bot used to generate the answer. So that's the most important concept. The other thing is when you do, before you do a pilot, you use the specialists let's say in the PIP team to just practice and see the kind of responses it's getting, and to test the reliability before you go into a limited pilot. And then the third control is that you have the RLHF scheme to make sure that the bot is responding as the staff expect it to.
What's this RLHF? Just bring that to life for us.
Yeah, so basically you're training a model to train the bot to respond as a human would. So that, I think you may have seen on the Teams animation, you have a thumbs up or you have a thumbs down, and from this we encode a reward signal which is used to train the bot.
In terms of the first question, the kind of a slightly different application, I think the short answer is no, we haven't thought about that. And just to kind of slightly divert a bit, I think there's something interesting to think about where Gen AI isn't the solution, and when we're dealing with lots of policy, I think there's something to consider around, are we managing information management, the documentation that we've got at the moment, as a a way of improving the source data as well. But to answer your specific question, we haven't thought about using this to test other policies, but I suppose we can use the power of it to find relevant, related some policy is something we could certainly consider in the future. Yes.
Yeah, I think the benefit of I think it's worth looking at the benefits. So how can it identify areas of continuous improvement by interrogating the data, so you can streamline it for those that are not using those services? Might be worth looking at.
And if I can jump in with a question that we've asked some of the teams here today. So if we wind forward to the 4th of July and you get through and you're in the final, what's the next few weeks and months going to look like? What can we expect as judges at the final?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is we've already spoken with the DWP digital transformation team, and we've had a conversation with them about actually building Possum in DWP, and they were very excited about that prospect. They look at it as a good opportunity to actually compare its performance with what they're developing. So, they're very open and collaborative on that front. So that will be the first one. Obviously, the testing it with the user groups that we've set up again. And with a lot of the things that Possum delivers is that human aspect of it, and the main thing is building that when I say customer, colleague engagement with actually using generative AI. It's for some people it's a very scary thing. For other people, it's going to take my job. So we need to really build that positive communication with them. It's not about replacing you, it's about helping you.
And we've spoken to design scientists as well, who we basically talked about, it'll be a big cultural change, because at the moment, there's guidance gurus, everywhere that people, they use those as the knowledge hub rather than the knowledge hub. So it'll be that big, change in culture of, it's, this thing's on your shoulder, and, with hybrid as well, you can use that at home, and it'll build that confidence. But yeah, it will be a big cultural change.
So one thing for me, I'd hope we'd also be able to carry on the whole open and collaborative working. So we've been in touch with a few different teams. I know there's a either just launched or about to launch pilot with Citizens Advice. So seeing what their learning is, because there's some aspects, the domains are different, but some of the principles are exactly the same. So see if we can share knowledge in both directions.
So Fiona James from the ONS. It's a really interesting presentation. I'm really interested in understanding a little bit more about the human overlay. So how much, for example, with the PIP, is it an individual kind of personal data challenge in terms of that person will be receiving PIP for a particular reason due to their disability or due to the individual nature of their the reason for getting it. So how much time is spent by the assessor in looking at that, as opposed to kind of what is more generalised policy guidance? Does that? So I'm trying to tie it back to the kind of the benefits question.
Yeah. Possum is not going to solve the whole of DWP's issue in this area, but it can help.
So there's already a Lighthouse project called Agent, which is going on, which is summarising conditions and PIP cases as a closed thing in terms of making decisions on benefits. So Possum's more about the big picture, more about those added complexities of payability, residence and presence, and all the extra little policies that mean even if a person's awarded, it might not be in pay, and why is it in pay? And that obviously then ties into overpayments, which are 8 billion, I think, in DWP, or is it in PIP? I think it's in PIP, and 3 billion in underpayments. So it's kind of like more looking at the niggly little complexities that we, as a department, have let go for too long. Try not to be too.
From a deliverability perspective, I guess, what do you think is the biggest blocker or hurdle that we might collectively need to help you overcome?
So we've been building a network. I had a conversation set up with Simon King, but it didn't quite happen quite yet because I think he's been quite busy. We'll use that. I've emailed back and forth with Rich Corbridge. Mm-hmm. We've talked to a bunch of different people. I'm in the health transformation program now, so I've talked to Jake Barlow, who's like a digital guy there, who's one of the SROs. So the big things for you guys will be, who are those people that overarch the civil service, who are really the movers and shakers that we could progress this to that next level of getting it across the civil service.
Really great presentation, team. Thank you very, very much. Well done.